Hello and welcome to another episode of the Doster, T.O. and Phantom Podcast, the DTF Podcast. It is Monday morning, January 31st. My name is Rob Doster. I have with me Coach Terrence Oglesby, Clemson's own, and the one and only John Phantom, fresh off of calling that Providence Marquette game on Sunday. Phantom, that was a big game for you. Before we get into what we got planned today, we got a good show. We're going to break down each conference, who's going to win the league, who's best set up for a run in March. But I got to know, man, that was that the biggest game of your career that you called on Sunday?
Yes, it was. It was an electric atmosphere and a down-to-the-wire finish, punch for punch, heavyweight bout between Providence and Marquette, a top 25 matchup that lived up to its billing. And it was a pleasure to be on the call for Fox Sports with my man, Vin Parisi, who we've been able to develop as a team this season and have loved working together. His basketball acumen is sensational. He's a guy that has close ties with Rutgers, worked under Gary Waters, worked under Kevin Willard when Kevin was at Winona. He has very close ties with Rick Pitino as well. Vin is outstanding, and I enjoyed every second of it. That's the type of game that when you get off the air, you pinch yourself and you say, we get to do this. We get to do this. We get to cover this sport for a living. So it was an emotional afternoon, and I appreciate the outpouring of love and followers who said, nice work. And it was just the type of game that makes you say, man, I get to live the American dream.
How loud was it after Nate Watson's dunk? You've been in a lot of buildings and a lot of arenas that have gotten really loud. How loud was it after Nate Watson's dunk?
Could not hear in the headset. Couldn't hear what Ben was saying. Couldn't even really, when you're talking, I can't hear exactly what I'm saying, but I'm hoping that it sounds good. And that's where the play-by-play.
That's the story. That's the story of my life, Fitz. I'm just talking, hoping it sounds good.
Yeah. And that's where I look back at it. That's where you don't have anything prepared. How could you prepare anything on that type of a dunk? So I just went with oh my, because that was an oh my man's jam. Nate Watson is a grown man.
Yeah, yes.
He came back to Providence. He said it was an easy decision. Guys, he is the Mariano Rivera of the Big East this season. When there's 3 minutes on the clock and it's a close game, damn. Give him the basketball, and he's going to make something happen. So I just went, oh, my, and that's where less is more. Let that crowd speak for itself. It is the ultimate tribute to a crowd for a broadcaster that in that game yesterday, guys, I could just lay out and let the crowd tell the story of the game. They told the story of that showdown. The student section went with the beach theme in the midst of a blizzard. It felt like 0 degrees yesterday in Providence. It was truly Big East basketball at its best. It was a great advertisement for the conference on FS1 in a standalone type of window for that league. So just a sensational afternoon. I couldn't hear myself think. Loved every second of it.
Hey, what are your thoughts on the fans that are now petitioning for a John Fanta statue out in front of the dunk? I need a granite John Fanta in front of the dunk.
Well, it's extremely humbling, but I don't play the games. I don't do what Nate Watson does or what Al Durham is doing for the Providence Friars. Look, it's very humbling. That fan base is so passionate, as Rob is learning right now. It's all good. It's all good. I love the banter. That's what the Big East was back in the day. Before the game yesterday, Marquette and Providence were jawing at each other. They were going at each other at midcourt. And somebody texted me and said, this is refreshing because the Big East schools have this love for one another. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. They're all basketball schools. They're all like-minded. They don't want to break up again like we saw a breakup 10 years ago. So they're all conscious of that, right? But, we need some hatred in the league too. We need some punches. We need a game like yesterday. It was just a great game. But I don't play the games, and no statue needed. If you're going to build a statue, build it out of Federal Hill chicken parmesan for me, and maybe that's a nice tribute for me. But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, basketball-wise, yesterday, going into the game, Marquette was 6-0 in games decided by 5 points or less. Providence was 5-0. Providence is now 6-0. Marquette is 6-1. It's a reflection of just how great of a game that was down the stretch. And say what you want about the Friars, but in a close game late, they have had the formula to find a way to win. They are unbeaten in those games decided by 5 points or less. Very, very impressive.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive straight into it. We'll start with the Big East since we're already on the topic. What we're going to do in this show is kind of go through the teams at the top of the conference, kind of figure out who we think is going to win the regular season title, or at least on track to win the regular season title in each of these conferences, and also talk through who we think is best set up for a run in March. So right now in the Big East, Providence is sitting at 8-1 in the conference. Villanova is 9-2. UConn is 6-2. I would think that those are probably the only three teams that are still in the mix to win the league's regular season title at this point. The odds right now, Villanova is minus 175 to win it. Providence is plus 275. UConn is plus 550. And to me, if you look at what the remaining schedule is for Providence, if you get 2.75 to 1 odds on them winning the regular season title, that's pretty tasty, T.O. That's pretty tasty.
Yeah, I was sitting here looking at the schedule too. St. John's away, people have shown that they can win there. Villanova at home, the next really big one, because Georgetown has been Georgetown this year. They've really struggled. And then Georgetown, yeah, they stink. But then if you look, they have DePaul at home, then they're Villanova at home. This Providence team, whether or not they win the regular season, could come down to the last game of the season. And I hope John Fant is on the call for that one too. Villanova, Providence at Villanova. It could very well come down to that game. And that could be, man, that'd be big time. I like those odds though, 275 for Providence to win it, especially the way their schedule's shaping up. And you have Xavier at home. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah,
I don't see any way you could bet on Villanova with this number, simply because Villanova has to play UConn twice and they have to play Providence twice, and they're already a game behind Providence. Right. There's no way that you can bet on Villanova at that number. It just, if they end up winning this, it's going to be the miracle of all miracles, and Villanova just doing what they do, Fanta.
Well, it's hard to call anything that Jay Wright does in 2022 a miracle, but I understand what you're saying. Here's the thing. I think the next 48 hours are going to tell a big story of who wins this league, because St. John's is not playing that home game on Tuesday night against Providence at Madison Square Garden. That game's back in the old gym. It's back in Carnesecca Arena. You are 48 hours removed from a real signature win that took a lot out of you, Providence. And now you got to travel to Queens, and that is a late night game. I believe that is a 9:00 game at Carnesecca Arena. I think it's a huge trap game for Providence. I really do. St. John's matched up very well with them at the Dunkin' Donuts Center, just could not finish, a theme for the Red Storm this season. But I think it's a trap, guys. I really do, because I could see Providence going in a little bit fatigued and coming into Carnesecca. It's hard to get up for a game in there. And I think that could be a trap game. If Providence wins that game, I truly feel it's there for the taking. It is there. It already is. Like, they should win this league. The way it sets up, they are likely not going to be able to reschedule some games that could present some very tough competition at Creighton, home to UConn, at Seton Hall. That's beneficial to them. But look, they've done their part. They're 8-1. They're 8-1, and they have Villanova twice. That'll be telling who wins those games. I think Providence is a matchup nightmare for Villanova, because Nate Watson and Noah Horkler are going to cause a lot of problems, and Justin Minaya will too. Justin Minaya is going to take on Justin Moore, and he's going to shut him down. I mean, I will go on the record and say that right now. Justin Minaya is going to be named the Big East Player of the Week right now, like conference office is putting that out. He is playing the best defense in this league right now. He is a matchup problem for Villanova. Providence is a matchup problem for Villanova, and then some. But the next 48 hours to me are huge, because it's an opportunity for Villanova to gain ground. But what happens Wednesday night, guys? And T.O., I can sense you're tingling with excitement here. It's a 10 Eastern time start, 10 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday night. I'm going to be looking at this as I'm doing After Dark. Villanova's at Marquette. At Marquette. Not long removed from that 3-point loss at home to the Golden Eagles. Marquette could beat Villanova again, and Marquette coming off a loss, they're going to be angry. That is a huge game in Milwaukee, Because if Villanova loses that game, I'm curious to see where the door opens, because I think the door could open for the Connecticut Huskies. Could UConn still win the Big East? Hell yeah, they can. They've won 5 in a row. They could win 6 in a row. UConn's got to win at Nova on Saturday for us to take them that seriously. That's a huge game on Saturday at high noon. I say Providence will win the league, but the discussion that you're going to get to about March Madness is a different level of discussion. But I'll go with the Friars, but I could see the Friars losing at St. John's. I think it's a very big trap game. And I think Villanova at Marquette, there's a prime opportunity for the Wildcats to gain some ground. But will they do it? That's a hard game at Marquette.
Yeah, I'm worried about Providence making a run in March just because they are one of these teams that is very much the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? I don't think that there's an NBA player on that roster, T.O. I don't know about you, but I don't know if there's a guy that's going to play in the league on that roster. Maybe Nate Watson just because he's so damn big and physical. But when you're talking about who's going to find a way to win games in a tournament setting, in a one-off setting, against the best teams in college basketball, I think that at some point you just got to have some guys that can go out and win a game for you by themselves. And I don't know if Providence necessarily has that, but I will tell you this right now, their future on winning the national title is plus 12,000, which means it's 120 to 1 odds. So if you bet $100 on them, you will win $12,000 if Providence wins the national title. And here's what happens at Bet Rivers. If you do that and they make a run to, let's say, the Sweet 16 and the odds change, you can cash out. So I do think that if you're bullish, if you're a Providence fan and you're bullish, drive on over to the state of Connecticut where Bet Rivers is legal, right? And go buy yourself a ticket and put something down on Providence winning the national title at 120 to 1 odds. That's insane. Yeah. That number is insane. 120 to 1. T.O., who in this conference do you think is best set up for a run in March?
I think Providence, because they defend, could win a game or two in the tournament. But the team that I look for, I think Xavier can. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at their roster. Paul Scruggs is a dude, and he's a guy you can put the ball in his hands and he can make something happen at the end of games. And we all know in the tournament, the last 4 minutes of the game is huge. And they've got guys, they're old. I mean, Scruggs a senior, Nungy a junior, Fremantle a junior. He's a little crazy. I like Fremantle. He's a little crazy. He's my kind of guy. But then you also have guys that can knock down some shots. Nate Johnson's been knocking them down at 42%. This Xavier team, they're old, they're big, they have a go-to player in Paul Scruggs. I think that's a team that could make a Sweet 16 and make a lot of noise come March.
So I think that Marquette is the team that can make a run out of this league. Is that crazy? Look, no, Villanova's
not crazy
Villanova.
at all.
Villanova's Villanova. We know what they are. We know what they do in March. UConn, I think, has a roster that's good enough to win some games. I'm always nervous about a team that really only has one point guard when that point guard is like a 5'11" MEAC transfer. I love RJ Cole, but he's 5'11", and I think that we saw against St. John's what happens if you can kind of take him away. So I'm worried about that. Marquette has dudes on the wings. They got a point guard that can make plays off the bounce. They have a rim protector that's going to erase everything at the basket unless he's getting swim moved by Nate Watson in the final 30 seconds of a game at the dunk. They get out and pressure on the wings. They can force turnovers. They make it very difficult for you to run offense. And like, calling it what it is, they are one Justin Lewis layup away from being in overtime against Providence right now. So I think Marquette is the team that's best set up to make a run in March out of this group.
Here's my only thing to combat that. When you get to the tournament, and I played on a high tempo team when I was in college, but like when you get to the tournament, that game slows down. You're going to have to score in the half court. Like you have to find ways to score in the half court in the NCAA tournament. I think Xavier can do that. I think Marquette can too, because I love Smith. I think he's one of the best freshmen in the Big East for sure. I mean, he's fantastic. But Marquette has to rely on this a little bit. You got to get up and down. You saw what they tried to do in the first half against Providence. They were trying to get up and down so they didn't have to play against a set defense. In the NCAA tournament, you have to play against a set defense. I do think that they can for a couple of reasons. One, Tyler Kolek is a guy that could break down a defense in a ball screen. Two, Justin Lewis is a guy that you can give the rock to and let him go. Yes, and Darryl Marcel can do all of those things. And they got shooters on the perimeter. So I actually do think that they can. I think if they've started to figure things out a little bit here in the Big East. Fanta, real quick, you got 1 minute. Give me a take on who you think is the best setup for a run out of this conference. Marquette, by the way, we talked about Providence being 120 to 1.
to win the national title. Marquette is 150-1 to win the national title. So if you're a Big East fan and you think one of these two teams can make a run, like put $10 down on it and then cash out if they get it to the Sweet 16. It's an easy way to make money.
So do I still get a minute?
Yeah.
Goodman did that to me the other day.
So here's the thing. I think on their best day, when they play their best basketball, that Connecticut is the toughest team in the Big East. Because against a set defense, like T.O. was saying, you got to be able to play against a set defense. When you have number 21 in the middle that you could just feed the rock, he is an elite player. He is a throwback big. In the Big East, everybody knows everybody. You're going to play each other twice or three times a year. In the NCAA tournament, if you have never seen Adama Sanogo before, that is a real hard prep. He plays the position at the 5 really like few others do. He can run the floor too. He did it last week in a pair of wins. The big question is if RJ Cole gets enough help, but Tyrese Martin has the ability to single-handedly win them a game in the NCAA tournament. This is a Connecticut team that's picking up steam, that is tough as nails, that handed Auburn its only loss. The Huskies are the team that could make the deepest run in the Big East if they're playing their game. If they're playing their game and they're in sync enough offensively, then the UConn Huskies could be sitting in a regional final, and it would not surprise me at all. The point at the end of the day is, though, we threw out different answers. Illustrating the fact that the Big East is absolutely a top 3 conference in college basketball this season.
And it's crazy that none of us said the team that has won 2 of the last 5 national championships.
Well, we want to be
crazy.
Different. Yeah,
It's
we want to be
crazy.
different. That happens in the national narratives. Villanova's boring. Like, Villanova's not.
They are.
Villanova's not sexy. They're not glamorous. They don't need to be.
It's because you took away Jay Wright's suits.
I should drink every time somebody says that. But like, they don't need to be.
Fanta, we need you sober, my friend. We need you sober, my friend. You're right, though. Villanova is not sexy. Villanova is oatmeal when everybody wants bacon and eggs. That's what it is.
They just keep winning. Okay.
Yep. All right. So